Welcome to the stage, panel. So we've done a couple talks, and a couple of them have involved the topic of AI, so I wanted to kind of try and keep things fresh as much as possible. So if it feels like I'm skipping the foundation, then I'm sorry, but I want to jump right into, as the first kind of discussion point, something that's come up a lot over the last couple of days was that it's less about the fact of whether the technology is there and more about whether or not the people in the industries are ready to adopt these technologies, and that's pretty topical at the moment. So how do we educate or train people to understand how they could implement AI into their business, for example, or even get started with the question of, am I ready, if I don't even know what AI is? So my question is kind of around that topic.
So maybe I start on this topic. Maybe we start by defining what do we mean by AI, because there are two things. As we are on Robotex Conference, the AI, the real AI is like the robots doing like human related or human copying or this kind of AI. And there is the other side of the field where I think some of us are more into is the machine learning part, data science, which is more the machine learning AI part. So if we talk about this one, what we or what our company actually faced is a lot of the enterprise. So we work a lot with enterprises and corporates, and the main thing was they would love to work with AI or machine learning, but they don't understand it, and they want that the machine solves all the problems. They say, okay, AI is solving everything, and yeah, let's put a project onto this, and everything is solved. We don't have any problems more. We can cut costs, and we are profitable again. So I think there is a big lack in understanding this machine learning AI part.
If I can add, sorry.
Yeah, please just jump in and go crazy.
Yeah, if I can add there, I think what they need to also understand is that the AI is not going to just learn by itself. What you need is the proper data in order to train the system. So maybe sometimes businesses will not realize that they need that proper setup and also some of the domain knowledge to know how they're going to go about the task.
And I think perhaps it's a change of mentality, right, for where all, or almost all prior software paradigms, all prior software that we installed in the enterprise have been somewhat deterministic, right, for where I want some process done and I can describe it in full and I can repeat it 100 times over and I get the same 100 kind of outcomes, to a world for where you'll make some sort of prediction today and tomorrow you hope when you make the same prediction that it provides the same outcome, but that is not always the case. And in that new kind of setting, you have to kind of at least accept the fact that I'm going to have a world for where I will be living with confidence levels, and I'm not sure they are kind of mentally ready for that. And then I think even kind of beyond that, there's this kind of new setting where not only are you making a set of predictions where you're not entirely sure what the outcome might be in those predictions, for where you might surrender to kind of full or semi-autonomy, for where I want some task done, which will be multiple steps, and I'll ask the machine, whether that's software or something else, to do that for me. And I'll only see the outcome, but not the middle steps. And I think outside of the kind of technical challenges, there's really a rather kind of dramatic change in attitude on how to kind of operate organizations that kind of operate under that paradigm.
You know, one thing I find really useful, a concept for thinking about this, is in normal software development, you typically have a test set, like 100, 200 cases where, if you've sort of passed all the tests and your software is ready. And like if the test set is written well, then it's true, like it works well in the real world. For statistical development or cases where you can't perfectly solve the problem, your test set is basically created from real data. If you want to decide whether an image contains a car, you have 10,000 images of things, and then you sort of statistically measure how well you're doing on this data set. And the label we use for this concept at Starship, and I find it very useful, is data as a spec. So this test set in normal software development specs out the task for you, and in machine learning, actually in any kind of development, this new test set can be however big, like 1 million examples, and this specs out the task for you then. And it doesn't matter whether you develop normal software against this data set, do this sort of engineer gradient, or like engineers optimize their software to do well on this data set, or you learn it directly from the data, which would be machine learning. Regardless of that, you sort of aim for improving on this metric, and how you manage the data becomes extremely important because, as I said, that is the specification of the task.
And as you and I just talked about exactly 17 seconds ago over there, in this kind of setting for where you can't just have a piece of software, a set of tests for where you can prove over and over again that it delivers on the specs that you and I kind of came up with, but you have this kind of data set, there is, and we certainly found that, so we spent the last 4 years, me and my Honda propeller head friends, and trying to create this agent that can schedule meetings for where we thought, at least initially, that the threshold that we needed to kind of reach would be one for if we can deliver human-level accuracy at a fraction of the cost, we would be kind of in a robust setting in the market. That ended up not being true, as in there was just a different level of expectation when you put a machine to do a human's job. Not that it's going to be as good, but it's probably going to be better. And that means we had all sorts of things for where we tried to kind of measure whether we needed more data to kind of reach some sort of inflection point to do a prediction on whether it's a reschedule or a cancel or whatever kind of model I'm trying to kind of build. But our customers expected us to do way better than if you had hired a human to do a task, even though you would pay the human $5K and not $10, right? And that I find kind of super interesting. And again, that brings me back to kind of where we started. I think that really needs to be a change of mentality. Just like self-driving cars, right? For where right now you can't really open up any paper where there won't be some sort of story about a self-driving car, and then there's a footnote for where we'll go from, at least in the US, 40K people dying a year to 0. That's not going to happen, right? As in, it's not going to be 0. It's going to be perhaps 10K. But 10K is going to be really awesome, right? That's 30K people who's going to be happier every year.
More alive.
They're going to be more alive than yesterday. But it's going to be really hard to somehow convince people, and the population can be some sort of replica for the enterprise here, to accept that, we're going to have machines kill 10,000 people every year.
Yeah. Huh.
Which sounds dramatic in the way I put it.
I think that mindset, again, has been a huge topic, and one part of the mindset is when you take AI maybe to traditional business or even to manufacturing, Industry 4.0, and we talked yesterday about how there's, in Estonia at least, people are in Industry 2.0. So when you try to bring them 4.0, they're like, what the heck is going on? Is this a science fiction movie? So the next question I pose is, how do you overcome those mentality barriers, and how, when maybe we have traditional businesses who, as soon as they hear AI and robots, it means, we're going to fire everybody and replace them. How do we get past that and move to this can make you more efficient and more profitable and have a net increase in goodness?
So maybe one thing that we don't have the mentality yet, or machines make very different mistakes than humans make. Mm-hmm. Let's put it that way. And some machines make mistakes that humans would rarely make, where you say, okay, how dumb is this machine, right? I mean, how could you? And we don't forgive these kind of mistakes. But on the other hand, there are humans make mistakes that machines would rarely ever make. And I think that's something where we have, also me, right? We as humans, I think, have an issue with accepting that machines make really, really dumb mistakes as well, right? And I think that's where we have to understand this is a machine, and it's usually on a very different level, but it might make really mistakes only toddlers would maybe make. Mm-hmm. I think that's if that's something, and if you also, and I talk to a lot of corporate executives about stuff like that, I'm always also trying to explain the probabilistic kind of approach that we also talked about, and also telling them that there is no common sense in machines. That kind of approach helps, but to be honest, most of the times they don't need AI for the problems that they have today. Just also to see, is there even like a problem, right? Do they need AI? Most of the times they have very different problems, and let the experts advance AI, and then maybe you buy services from the experts here, right? Just also to give a little bit different kind of, not every business needs AI today to solve whatever their problems are.
But I think that the point is that when a new business adopts AI, it's like adopting a robot the first time. So how do you approach that? And me, I'm in the manufacturing industry. So how we put AI into robots in the manufacturing industry? It's just viewing it as a game, and the responsibility of humans above this new tool. It's a robot, it's an AI, it's just another tool. And approaching it in that way, making responsible the persons and teaching them how this new set of skills that they have to develop to make the most of this technology. And I think that if we, well, every integration in the manufacturing industry, it starts with the people. So we don't bring technology and just play the button, go. We just teach and train with the people, and that's how the best adoption that we can get, and how the businesses can really do this iteration and evolution, and how they think and how they approach technology and these new tools.
I read a set of papers that came out perhaps, it seems like last week, I'm sure it's 2 years ago. So a couple of years ago or something like that, for where they've done an experiment on a robo-finance advisor. We've all kind of seen those startups kind of being pushed as we speak, and a human trader that will kind of manage your funds. And they would do the exact same trades and make the exact same mistakes. But the conclusion of the paper was that humans just weren't willing to forgive the machine, but they were willing to forgive the human for the exact same mistakes. That I find interesting. And somehow we've just been in a setting for where it was never really an option for where we would have to debate whether I should be willing to forgive a piece of software. As in, if Photoshop doesn't crop my image at 200 by 200 pixels, it's not fucking working. And we need a different piece of software. But now we're in a new setting for where there's this kind of set of probabilities, as you allude to, where you probably have to educate yourself and your staff to some new setting where you should allow yourself to forgive the machine. And that sounds really odd, right? But we certainly forgive all of our employees when they make mistakes all the time, because we hope they learn from it. But the machines learn as well.
It's really funny because when we get a robot into the factory, the operator really likes to say, "Oh, robot, you're a bad robot. You didn't perform well." And it's kind of a thing that they like to do because they are responsible for it. And it's like, and they can learn, as you say. We just use reinforcement, and they can learn better. And it's like another student that they care about.
That there might be we should write a new paper on that. So I think there might actually be something for where when you move from kind of invisible software to robots, for where it's probably much, much harder to anthropomorphize just invisible software, what you guys do and what you guys do, and kind of anthropomorphizing a robot for where you can have some relationship. We do it all the time. Yeah. And I can see that might be that first baby step into forgiving it, not doing exactly what I told it to do. Mm-hmm. But certainly harder with software. And we experience it every day. And we do exactly what you said as well, for where we make machine errors, not human errors. We actually make very few human errors, but the machine errors we make are just, they look dumb. As in, Dennis, 100 people, 4 years? This is an if-then statement. What's going on?
on this topic of managing user expectations, I think it's a very, very underexplored field, this basically AI product management or machine learning product management, where you have this like non-perfect product, it's trying to automate something. It strikes me as something that is specific in the sense that like you could develop some knowledge around how to manage these sorts of products as opposed to this classical rule mappable sort of maybe not easy, but linear maybe more products. You have less uncertainty. I haven't seen a book, even a blog post about this topic, and would very much like to. So if anyone knows about anything about sort of machine learning or AI product management, I'm happy to listen to your recommendations.
Actually, how we faced this problem, or how we try to solve this problem in our space, as the customers didn't understand that the AI will never, or at least in the next years, not achieve the 100% accuracy. And they kept on asking, like, okay, if you're at 85%, which is kind of really good in some fields, we do object detection on documents. And then what about the next document? Will it be correct or not? We said, yeah, we can kind of predict the accuracy, but more or less, but it's not like we can say it's correct or not. So what we did in the meantime, until there is some education in this field, we created a whole service that we say, okay, you can outsource the whole part of the document extraction. We do quality assurance on our side, so you can be sure that predefined accuracy, which means, we discussed it before, accuracy means the accuracy a human would have on this extraction, or when he would like type the document. Is done in our in-house. So we have the AI part doing the prediction or recognizing the items on a document, and we have the quality assurance process, which with humans checking if the document is right or not, and then like Tinder like saying yes, no, and if it's not correct, the person corrects it on a human level, and the information goes back into the machine, so that there is a continuous learning, but the learning goes is like in one direction to understand how the human would solve the problem, and it gets, let's say, better and better understanding how humans would do this process and solve it at this accuracy.
Just one point I want to take out of your what you said here is service level agreements typically have like uptime, we're up 10 minutes per month, down 10 minutes per month.
What kind of service are you running?
Yeah. Very expensive one. And they're beginning to have these accuracy agreements, right? So that you guarantee some level of accuracy, but you can't guarantee perfect, as well as you can't guarantee perfect uptime, right? Yeah. So this will be part of the service agreement.
So actually, that's finally the product that we brought out. It's like it's not only the extraction part, but it's these service level agreements that we said, okay, at a specific time we can give you back the document or the documents with a predefined quality, and if we miss it, it's then obviously like in other SLAs, if a server is down or something, you give discounts or what else.
But I think a good way to perhaps bucket this is that there's a set of AI products for where high accuracy is necessary, as in anything which is not high accuracy really makes the product void, as in it can't exist. You can put self-driving cars and other kind of dramatic products in that category, for where even what we have today is pretty amazing software, right? But you kind of putting that car on the streets of Manhattan, it'll hit a pedestrian in the first 100 meters, another one in the next 100 meters, but it's still good software, but we just can't have it hit 100 pedestrians kind of all the way up to Midtown. So there's a set of products in that category, but I also think there's a set of products in the low accuracy space, for where you can have low accuracy, but whatever prediction you make, which is good, is of value. So me uploading a picture to Facebook and then picking 3 faces out of 5, that's a 60% accuracy, which is kind of shit in the self-driving car category. But on the Facebook category, hey, thank you very much. I don't need to kind of pick the first 3 faces, I can click my mom and the other kind of one in the dark corner. So I think there's certainly 2 categories for where if I was an enterprise, I'm not sure I would start with, and that's probably where you jumped in the deep end, certainly, for where any document which they want to extract some meaning from, I'm sure they walk into with the idea that, oh, so 100 documents is going to be perfect out of the 100 I gave you, not 85.
Yeah,
but there might actually be other jobs in the organization for where, hey, if you can just do 80, I'll be hunky-dory. That'll be great.
I want to take the time to take any questions from the audience, since I've had to cut a couple people off in the previous talks. Does anybody have a question?
You should immediately call bullshit if you think what we're saying doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Awesome. Just grab a mic.
Hi. I kind of wanted to hear your opinion on, so we're hearing often about AI and how it's disrupting the businesses and all these people going to be let go and this super smart thing is coming in. What do you think about the idea that it will be much, much simpler algorithms that are actually putting maybe simple jobs at risk and it's not the big, super, hyper-intelligent AI? It was just interesting to hear what you had to say to that.
Can you bring an example?
Especially that are jobs that are like single task. So for example, making that call or moving that panel or making that one calculation, I would see that more as a risk and not maybe an accountant that does your accounting but also decides who gets the raise or whatever, so more complex things. And what we see in the media a lot is, okay, AI is coming, everyone's fired, go away, and there's this thinking like, oh, in the future this will be this problem without realizing that these simple algorithms already exist that will be able to take over smaller jobs, single task jobs.
Oh, but I think most of you are working in simple
In
AI,
microtasks.
right? Like it's all microtasks, which in the end you cannot really calculate how many people lose their jobs because they just do this less and something else maybe more. Who knows, right? Dennis, with you, I don't know, right? With Fedger, I'm invested, so I know a little bit of the business. There are certainly complete jobs at risk, but it's also the tasks are fairly simple. So it's not, I mean, it's crazy great AI, of course, but it's simple microtasks that are actually being replaced.
But I don't think that it's the good word, replaced. I think it's shifting. I mean, okay, a microtask is done. For example, in robotics, it can be like, in AI robotics, can be picking and placing. And so, okay, the human is not doing the picking and placing because the robot knows how to do it and where to do it. The person doesn't even have to say where the things are. So they don't have to program. I was talking yesterday with an integrator, so the people that programs, and they say, you are really I want your thing because I just don't want to program anymore. It's just, I have so much things to add value. So if instead of doing these microtasks, they are deciding, they are creating, there's so many other skills and tasks to do. So we are not really thinking about replacing. It's more about shifting how I can add value and how can I use this tool.
I have a slightly more harsh view of this. There's definitely roles where you take away some of the tasks which are not very useful or not interesting to the person doing it, and then you can sort of make the service cheaper because same amount of people can service more requests or whatever. But there are definitely also cases where there's just a group of people who can't do any job because the low-skilled job they were doing will be taken from them. And let's say truck drivers in the US. I mean, it's mostly like male, not very young people. Not sure how sort of willing they are to go back into education for retraining, or if there are even any jobs for which it's easy to retrain people in like a few months or a year. And I think it's only a matter of time when we sort of need to institute some form of basically wealth redistribution. Universal basic income is just one form, negative income tax or whatever. But I just, like in the future, if we could lose all jobs and sort of redistribute most of this wealth back to people, I think that's a good future. Like, people don't want to work.
Can I push back?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
So, not just for the purpose of pushing back, but actually on both of them. I'll start on the UBI thing. So,
yeah.
And every dude and his mom in the valley is talking about UBI being the solution to kind of the inequality that we put in place, and it's certainly way more dramatic in the US than it is here in Europe, almost to the point of unfair, right? It's slightly more compressed if you go to Denmark, England, Spain, but super dramatic in the US. Here's the flip side of that coin. So don't you find it odd that the very people who won the lottery are the ones that are pitching UBI? Doesn't that seem kind of out of whack? As in, shouldn't it be the people at the bottom where, hey, I lost, and the solution, which I think might just help me, would be universal basic income? So here's the kind of negative connotation added to it. Perhaps really those at the top are just trying to figure out, how can I keep people from just not dying, being comfortably poor, just long enough for me to extract maximum value? That's called UBI. As in, I don't want you to die, because then you're not a consumer. So if you don't need to die, I need to give you just enough for you to not die. Let's call it $800, and that'll be it. So I've just slowly changed my opinion a little bit, as in, I'm not sure, I'm not immediately convinced UBI is the answer. So that's just food for thought.
Let me give you like a 10-second reply. UBI is a specific approach to this problem. Like redistribution can be done in many, many ways, and UBI is like one specific way.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, redistribution I'm a fan of. UBI, I've just become more skeptical kind of late. Because it seems like the value want to give people just the minimum amount of profits.
Yeah.
Because you need to keep clicking on Facebook. And that doesn't sit well with me. Now, the second point on those truck drivers, I'm just super optimistic in general. So we have a little bit above 5 million people who are somewhat employed in a truck driving type job in the US. And you're absolutely right that they are in danger if you just look at that self-driving car who's coming around the corner, when we don't really know whether it's 2 years away, could be 2 decades away, as in that last 2% in any system is just super fucking hard. So we don't know when it's going to arrive, but it will arrive. So I think that's inevitable. But you and me as consumers, we are just so hungry for more service that I find it difficult to not see us wanting more. So right now, I don't do any grocery shopping. As in, some truck drives from Long Island to Manhattan with my groceries. Hey, leaves me that kind of set of groceries in the lobby. Okay, what if he didn't have to drive and he could just stay in the city? Then he could take it from the lobby to the 19th floor. Hell, what if that gets automated? Just take it from the 19th floor to my kitchen. When that gets automated, take it from the kitchen into the fridge. When in the fridge, unpack it. When unpacked, cook it for me. As in, I just have so many desires outside of that box being delivered on, 15 Broad Street, that sure, the very driving from Long Island to the city, that might disappear. But I got desires, man. And there's a million people like me in the city.
Yeah. So the idea is that the if you make the service so much cheaper or easier to provide, then the demand will also grow, which is sort of a pattern we've seen a lot in history.
As in, there's certainly no point in history that doesn't suggest that what I am painting is not true. This time it might be different, and that's the argument.
That's always like a sketchy argument. Like this time it's different.
Yeah.
I want to come back around and give the audience an opportunity to ask questions.
We turned into
we have to catch
you guys
up
can
later.
duke it out afterwards if you want. Is there any other audience questions? I can't see anymore. No? I have one. One back here. Awesome.
So you guys came out of this discussion with a very positive note. So I'll try to spin a little bit of negative into it again. So if we take the transportation sector in US, it's about 8% of total employment. During the Great Depression in America, the unemployment rate for people who could work was about 18%. And that means in total it was over 50-something. So if we just take transportation and we automate transportation away, it pumps us up from a couple percent into tens of percents. If we do that for another couple of industries, and transportation, we are seeing that the self-driving cars are making a grand entrance right now. And we also know that it's probably quite easy to make automated baristas. So the numbers seem like really huge. Like there's going to be tens of millions of people in US in the next coming decade who need to relocate their work. So is the connotation still positive? Thanks.
I'm going to push back on that, but no surprise there. Not you, perhaps more the media. I think it's almost lazy to paint a picture of the jobs that will potentially disappear, because it requires no imagination. It requires some imagination to think up the jobs that might actually arrive. As in, you and me had no idea that about 2 million people will be involved in the app economy in the US alone. As in, the app, what the fuck? What does that even mean? As in, I was developing WAP applications on my Nokia 14 years ago. As in, I just couldn't imagine a whole economy built up around applications on my smartphone, right? As in, that's a new economy that arrived. So the ability to imagine what might arrive is just much, much harder than quickly picking 3 or 4 descriptions of jobs that might disappear. So I'm very optimistic that, sure, some of them might disappear or might transform to the extent that they are not really recognizable to what they were yesterday, but a whole batch of new jobs will arrive at the same time. And I think it's equally likely, or certainly I haven't seen any study that will kind of suggest otherwise, that it's going to be some positive come the other side of this mini revolution. So I'm just not, I'm not convinced.
I want to give an example. For example, there's Amazon, okay? It uses robots, and it replaces, or shifts, as I like, but it replaces people going to pick things in the warehouses and making the packages, making boxes. So right now, Amazon is using 100K robots for doing this. So where are the people? What's happening with the people? In fact, it's like a couple of thousands people have new jobs, because the productivity increased so much. We know Amazon just is in growth, as always, and we have like new jobs, new people doing different things, but working. So how media can explain that?
So maybe I'm a little bit more on the negative side of this also. My main question is, are these the same people or are these different people? The thing, what we're seeing is that the change cycles are compressing. Will the people be able to re-educate in the same time that things change? So relearn. And that might be with your desires for please cook the meal, that truck driver will also be a good chef. Let's see. My main problem is also with UBI, we're creating the worthless class. So people that feel worthless, you can give them a lot of money, but
no purpose.
If people feel worthless, they don't have a purpose, that's a much bigger problem than financial stability or so. And that's something we need to really think about. And how many people will relearn and get different jobs, some will fall through the cracks more than we had before. There will be social issues. I cannot see them not happening.
So education is critical, that's for sure. And I think we are doing it not right. And I think there's a lot of talks about that here. But I think it's also a question of society responsibility. So everyone is taking decisions on that. I'm taking decisions when I put a robot somewhere. It's my decision to train the people so they can shift. Everyone has to have this kind of conscious and
Talk to Facebook about it.
so we are deciding.
But
we are
The
deciding.
consumer-driven people.
Each one of us.
I totally agree.
And
But just to push, I want to push back on that just for 1 second.
I think I'm going to let you guys duke it out again, because otherwise I'm going to have to be mean and
Sorry.
cut off
Yes.
my next speaker. So thank you so much, panel, and thank you so much, audience. And please go have a good fight.
Yes, thank you very much.